Hello, it is March 9th, 2017, and I have a small presentation in regards to the infant feeding session that I wanted to get out to all of the directors. So this is not a new rule. There's no additions or changes to the rules themselves, but the Attorney General's office has issued a definition of an infant feeding session that's very specific. And that's where this new proceeding comes out of this. So I just want to make you aware of that. But it's not a new rule, but it is. It's going to be a new procedure for the classrooms. So the parameters of an infant feeding session, that's what we're going to talk about. So what this came from is the 1 hour leaving milk out for 1 hour rule. Well, that's not in the rules. There's no 1 hour milk time frame, but it's a good rule of thumb. So it's a good general idea out there as far as like leaving the milk out. But what it really comes down to is a controlled time that the staff is feeding the child. That's what an infant feeding session is. And this pertains to mixed formula and to breast milk that is in bottles. So this does not apply to sippy cups, and it does not apply to kids that have bottles that are old enough to hold their own bottle to take it out and put it back in. It does not apply to them. It only applies to staff that have to hold the bottle for the child in order for that child to eat. So the small infants, whether you're holding them in your arms or in like a reclined seat, as long as you have to hold that bottle, this is what this applies to only, okay? Okay, so once the bottle is warm and the child is being fed by the teacher, and the child is being either held or in a reclined seat, and once that baby does not want the milk anymore, either they're full or they fall asleep or whatever the reason is, they're done for that time, and you put that child down and you move to another task, then that ends that infant's feeding session for that child. So what that means is, if the child wakes up, you put the child in the crib, and 15 minutes wakes up and wants some more milk. What that means is you can't use that bottle that you just had 15 minutes ago. You need to get a new bottle and either warm it up or put it together or mix it up for that child. They can't go back to that same bottle for different feeding sessions. All right, so that may mean you just mix it up in smaller increments, or that the mother just sends the milk in smaller ounces. But that's what that means. And we'll talk about what a task is specifically. But if that teacher is holding the child falls asleep in their arms, 15 minutes later, the baby wakes up and wants some more, you can feed off of that bottle for that baby, as long as the teacher or the staff is in direct contact or proximity to the baby itself. So they're holding them, or they're in the bouncy recline seat in front of them. You can use that bottle back and forth, because that is that session has just been paused. It's not been ended. Okay, so that is allowed. You can have two babies that are right there. If you're holding them in the recliner and you're direct contact with them right there sitting there, then they can go on and off of those bottles for 1 hour, as long as you need to. So a new task would be, you put the baby in the crib and you go and start to change diapers or feed another child or do toy cleaning or whatever. You're moving on to something different where you're not sitting right there with the baby. Okay, so that's what a new task is. A new task is not attending to an emergency of another baby that's maybe choking on something or hitting another child, or if a parent comes to the door, or if you have to run to the bathroom, something like that. That's not a new task. That's just a small intermission. A new task is something completely done that we're moving on to doing something else. All right, so that's what an infant feeding session looks like. So that's what I have. So since it's a new definition, see how this incorporates into your center. There's all different kinds of centers. all different ranges of babies as far as like their needs and their particulars and how they, like to eat and sleep. So talk to your infant teachers, see how that works for you, as how you can make this work. If you have questions, please just kind of talk about it with them and then get with me, and we will, if I need to come by during a feeding time for the infants and just kind of talk about how this looks and what we can do to make it work, that's what we need to do. So but sometime over this year, in the next 6 months, we need to implement this into the infant room. So even if it's with the new infants, there's our new policy that you don't bring in 8 ounces if your child only has 2 ounces at a time. So you don't waste that, or any kind of excess that you have for that. So that's the infant feeding session. I do have a couple other noteworthy things I just wanted to point out as well. First of all, if the mother wants to bring home any kind of breast milk or formula that the child has not had or has finished having, but she doesn't want you to throw it out, you can keep that for her to take home. It has to be in the refrigerator in a designated space that's identified as food that's already being given to the child. So if you have all the bottles in the infant refrigerator, they've got their name, they've got their date, they're obviously fresh, the same ounces that are in all of them. And then maybe in another part of the refrigerator they have the lunch bag or a plastic bag that says like used on the front of it, and all the bottles go in there. So when I open the refrigerator, it's obvious, what is fresh and what has been used. Then those can be sent home. I discourage this because those bottles have been heated and cooled, and they're going to try and reheat them again, and that's really just not a good situation. But that is allowable because they're the parent. They can do what they want to once they leave your center. So that's one item. The second one is if you're going to add a diaper changing station or a change of use to a room that's going to require diaper changing, you have to get with me first. You can't just put a new cart into the room. So we need to make sure that the cart is near, the diaper change station is near a food sink, a hand washing sink, and doesn't double as the food sink, and that the water temperatures are correct, and all of these types of things. So if I come in and you have a brand new changing station, that's going to be a 6-point demerit. So get with me beforehand. It's no big deal for me to come by. It takes just a few minutes. We can talk about where to put that and have that implemented into your classroom. And the last thing is for hand washing, make sure that when the staff and the children are washing their hands, that it's a 2-part process as far as like the soap part. So if they get soap and they're washing their hands, they're scrubbing their hands outside of the water. So they're washing their hands, scrubbing, singing the little song, and then they put their hands underneath the water and rinse it off. So we're not getting soap and rubbing our hands underneath the water. Okay, those two things are being melded. I've kind of seen that over the last 6 months or so. Pull it out. We're scrubbing our hands with soap outside the water, and then we're rinsing. Okay. So those are my updates that I have for you. If you have any questions, please email me or call me at any time, and I'll be glad to help you out and answer any questions that you may have. So thank you, everyone, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do.